Hey everybody, welcome to the Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence, and if I'm sitting in this seat, that means we have a guest in this seat. His name is Ryan Duffy from the very popular podcast, Let's Go Duffalo. Good to have you, Ryan.
Thank you for having me again. Third time's a charm.
And you have a brother, by the way, right?
Let me think. Yes.
Okay. Ryan Duffy, of course, from the same podcast, Let's Go Duffalo.
My name's Pat Duffy, first of all. Second of all, did I miss the light blue memo?
Yeah.
You guys look great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You look fantastic.
We're brothers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, so the Buffalo Bills, of course, coming off a big win against Washington and the Commanders. Do you take anything from the last game, Duffy? Do you take anything from the last game into this Miami game?
Yeah, I think the fact that this defense continues to dominate and they're just getting better every week. 9 sacks in a single game. And here's the thing. I know they'd given up 10 sacks in the 2 previous games, but Washington's offensive line, although they're moving it around, wasn't ranked terribly in the NFL. And it's the way that the Bills were getting to the quarterback. They have one of the lowest blitz percentages in the NFL and one of the highest pressure percentages, which means they're getting to the quarterback without sending extra people, which allows an already deep and dynamite defensive backfield to play somehow even better, which you saw with 4 interceptions from that same defense on top of the 9 sacks. Look, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I know it's going to be a immovable object versus unstoppable force game this weekend, but that gives me a lot of faith in what the Bills are doing, not only this Sunday, but moving forward.
Last week's game against Washington, do you take anything out of it? Washington's not that great, but boy, they faced a very dangerous Bills defense.
Yeah, Washington may not be that great, but their defensive line is stacked full of number 1 overall pick or first round picks, right? And again, you see now 2 weeks in a row, Spencer Brown playing exceptionally well against a formidable opponent. The offensive line as a whole, I think, was it 1 sack allowed?
1 pressure, no sacks.
1 pressure, 0 sacks. I mean, credit to the offensive line, which last year was a concern for Buffalo, and even week 1 was a bit of a concern. Granted, the Jets defense is looking to be fantastic, but nevertheless, I think that's what I take away the most. I know that Miami's defense isn't outstanding, but at the same time, I trust our offensive line against any defensive line in the league.
To the point he just made, going into the season, the Bills' offensive line was a massive question mark. Was Deion Dawkins pulling backwards? Could Spencer Brown be a legitimate starter? Osiris Torrance, the rookie, was he going to be able to fit in fine? Mitch Morse was the only rock solid. Right now, across several statistical margins, the Bills have the 3rd ranked passing offensive line in the NFL and a top 10 rushing offensive line.
One of their best players, Matt Milano, which I heard in the podcast, only had 1 tackle. Oh yeah, of course he was wearing the jersey for this week. So then let's take a springboard a little bit to next week's game, or this upcoming game on Sunday against Miami. Do you take the defense from the Buffalo Bills and then the offense for the Miami Dolphins? What kind of matchup do we have here on Sunday?
Look, I'll put it this way. Miami had a great potent offense last season, and the Bills defense matched up very well with it. I'll say something else. I know we're coming off of 70 points with the Dolphins, which, by the way, I know I sound like Bills fan. 3 teams could have scored 70 points last week. 2 of those teams decided, hey, we're going to take our starting quarterback out when the game was out of hand to preserve them, and those quarterbacks don't have histories of concussions. But I digress. They hung 24 on the Patriots, right? Fine. That's another legitimate NFL team. The Bills have allowed 2 touchdowns in 3 games. They have turned the ball over both fumble-wise and interception-wise in amounts this season that we haven't seen in years. I know the Dolphins are formidable. Holy crap, this defense is legitimate in Buffalo.
Your thoughts about Miami's game?
I think my thoughts about Miami's game is that, on paper, 70 points. I don't care who you're playing. This is the National Football League. That gives me caution right out of the gate. But to your point, I think that you have to look at who they're playing. And I think that the Dolphins have not come across any kind of defense up to this point like the Buffalo Bills defense. I love the matchup in general. But at the same time, I'm on the edge of my seat as a Bills fan because I don't know how it's going to shake out, and that gives me great caution.
I will say this. I think the 70 points was done on purpose as sort of a mind trick for the Bills game this week to try to prepare them for, hey, by the way, our offense, this isn't the same offense from last year. This isn't a backup or 3rd string quarterback. This is our number 1s going out all the way. I think it sent the message. I think he did it on purpose.
2 things. They beat Tua twice, and even when he was a starter last year, he was 8-5. Look, I'm not saying the guy's not talented. This idea that he's dominant and unstoppable, that fell off last year. Second, it's stupid to keep your starters in that long. Not only due to injury risk, you're putting more formations and plays on tape. You're giving Sean McDermott the ability of the defensive staff to combat what you're trying to do. Look, you want to go ego, you want to pay back the Broncos because they didn't give you an interview 2 years ago when they had a head coaching position open 3 years ago, fine. But I think it's more negative than it is positive for Miami.
We'll make our NFL picks coming up next. You're watching the Rochester Press Box.
Just passing through life lessons from notable Rochesterians, people you may think you know. Don Alhart, Maggie Brooks, John Dady, and Stacy Pension, J-Mac and Soccer Sam, Fred Costello, and Jake Zembeck, along with 21 more. How they all got from there to here. It's a new book by Bill Pucko, available for $12 postpaid only from rocksportsnow.com. Try it, and thank you.
Our Buffalo Bills segment brought to you by Connors of Ferris, your trusted and dedicated workers' comp attorneys, and proud sponsor of Buffalo Bills Training Camp.
Welcome back to the Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence filling in for Bill Pucko this week. And of course, segment being brought to you by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. And of course, Greg Connors joins us now. Greg, welcome to this week. Football, Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins. My goodness, this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it's going to be a track meet on a football field is the way it looks like. But I'm excited for it. Man, boy, did the Dolphins make a show last week with 70 points. But I think that Sean McDermott, he's got something to prove this week, and he's certainly going to have his hands full. So I'm looking forward to what he can demonstrate, what he can do.
All right, let's break this down. Let's get your picks here for this week. Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, probably sold out, electric environment. Where do you see this going?
Well, first of all, I got to admit, Duffy was right last week with the pick with the Commanders.
Oh,
I did lose my mind.
You got to save this tape now.
I just want to put that on the record for the public to hear. I got to admit, Duffy called it right.
Finally, a little credit around here. Somebody's willing to respect the Jersey man.
My goodness.
But you were saying, I'm sorry.
This week, I think the Bills are going to win. I don't know if they're going to be able to cover that 2.5 point spread. So I'm actually going to go with the Dolphins with plus 2.5.
Very interesting. All right, our guest, Ryan Duffy, your thoughts? Bills and Dolphins.
I love the matchup. I'm terrified to watch it as a Bills fan, but I do think the Bills are going to show exactly what they're made of defensively, or I should say continue to show what they're made of defensively. I have to take the Bills winning, and I also think covering.
Pat Duffy?
The Bills matched up really well defensively against them last season. Don't forget, all 3 games, a difference of 8 points in total. What Mike McDaniel has never seen, however, is a defense called by Sean McDermott. And we know the potential that this Bills offense has when they have to put the foot to the floor. I think they win. I think they get them by at least 3 points. It's not going to be a blowout touchdown victory, but I have them winning with over 2.5.
I think they will cover with the 3 points, and I think it will be a 3-point victory. So, yeah, I have to go with the Buffalo Bills on that one. But I'm really on the edge on this game.
Look. Just follow me because everything I say has turned out to be right since the day I was born.
And I want all of you guys to be right.
Thank you. It works out perfectly.
Now we go to our dangerous game outside of the Buffalo Bills-Miami game. Greg, what do you see for this upcoming week?
I'm going to stay local. I'm going to stay with the local ownership of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm going to go with Tampa plus 3.
Oh, my goodness. I think I'm going to follow him on that one. That's an easy pick for me. Ryan, what do you have for this week?
I think that the smart money, even though there's a lot of points there, I have to go with the Cardinals minus 14. Or Cardinals plus 14, excuse me.
I do want to warn you. Last week I took the Bears plus 12.5, right? And the second I made that pick, we walked out of here to find out the Bears defensive coordinator was being investigated and had resigned. Justin Fields was blaming the coach on every problem. $10,000 worth of equipment had been stolen from their facility. By the way, this all happened literally an hour after we left. But the thing that was not included, which I think swung the game the most, I didn't know Taylor Swift was going to be in Travis Kelce's, but that's good for 10 solid points. So in reality, I would like a review on my pick last week. Factor in the Taylor points. I still think I covered on that.
I do want to go back to Greg. Your pick in Tampa Bay. The 5 words I thought I would never say. I believe in Baker Mayfield. I'm a little nervous. Tell me you're not nervous about that as I say that out loud.
I like what Baker's doing down there. He's kind of got this refound energy, refound commitment, and he's doing Tampa proud right now.
Yeah, I tell you, I don't believe in New Orleans either. I think they're going to have Jameis Winston's the quarterback for that game. So I'm just telling you everything you know about Jameis Winston.
I mean, he's at the age where if he tries to eat a W, it might mess with his intestinal system, right? You got to have fiber with that. By the way, you guys, you've left the easiest game on the slate.
Why is that?
Indianapolis is somehow a 1-point favorite against the Rams this week with Gardner Minshew as the starter?
As we speak of right now, I think that's going to turn into a pick 'em. I don't believe that either, but Gardner Minshew has played in the NFL and played very well in the NFL.
How is everyone not running with all of the money in their bank account to put it on the Rams? Are you insane?
Do you believe in Kyle Allen 100% over Josh Allen?
We've talked about this.
Yeah. Thank you. Greg, do you believe in Kyle Allen as much with Josh Allen out?
No, I don't.
Ryan, do you believe in Kyle Allen and with Josh Allen out?
I'm gonna be the weird opinion here, and I believe in the Buffalo Bills.
Oh my God!
I believe it. Whoever's back there, they're gonna find a way to win.
The Bills would have to win that game 9-6.
Ryan talks like he's running for office, like he's not wearing a sweatshirt with a goose on it right now. Like, just have a take, man. Have a side.
It does say silly goose, but that's okay. It's his opinion. Leave him alone.
Thank you, friends.
Take.
Somehow I end up refereeing this, Greg. Either way. Thank you for the time this week. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
You're watching the Rochester Press Box.
Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
Perfect time of year to be in the Finger Lakes. Hello again, Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. I'm going to take you to the village of Hammondsport, south end of Keuka Lake. Come along for the ride. Look for the getaway guy on Facebook.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back to the Press Box here with the Duffy brothers, and like it or not, is being brought to you by Sport Clips. Your MVP experience is better than ever. Sport Clips. It's a game changer. No appointment needed. Stop by a Rochester location today. All right, the big like it or not segment has to do with Hall of Fame quarterback Joe Namath. Had so much to say about starting quarterback as of right now, Zach Wilson.
He calls into a radio show and just completely craps all over Zach Wilson. Says that he's seen enough, that he can't throw the ball. He's got some arm talent, but he doesn't have the brain to be in the NFL. He says the Jets should trade him. For what, by the way? He said that the coach and the GM don't know how to pick the right players, which, by the way, I kind of agree on. Yep. But the point is, I mean, he did this for absolutely nothing. He just called it a radio show like some angry guy that would call in after a Bills loss. He's an NFL legend. Not to mention, he's played under the bright lights in New York City. His career in New York ended poorly, and he was being criticized unfairly for injuries that he couldn't handle. Also, why don't you Google some of the off-the-field stuff that almost cost him a year of his career for being involved with potential mobsters and owning a bar in New York City and whispers of gambling that cost Bart Starr time in the NFL? Like, why he believed this was a good idea for no reason, I do not understand.
First, you did a lot of research on Joe Namath, but go ahead. That's a lot of information.
Joe Willie.
I did not know.
Do I like it? As a Bills fan, I love it, but I also feel kind of bad. It's almost like kicking someone when they're down.
Yeah.
But to me, like, the headline here is like, who cares what Joe Namath has to say? I agree with all of your points, and like, I understand that like he's unprovoked calling in and giving his opinion. That's fine. Welcome to every radio show ever in existence. Why is this getting such a headline when someone like Joe Namath has something to say?
It is in New York. I know there's an older crowd in New York that still follows and listens to their legends. As long as they're alive, they got something to say. Everybody wants to hear from them. But this seems to be a lot for. I kind of feel bad. I was rooting for him, not against the Bills, but I was rooting for him against the Patriots in that game to try to win it.
Yeah, it is weird to root. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yes, I do.
The kid didn't want to be in this situation. He's in it. He learned from a legend for about 3 months, and then the legend goes down, and now the season's on you again.
But you go for these weird things going on. Because, yeah, I don't want Zach Wilson to succeed as a Bills fan. But, yes, I do feel bad for the kid because some things have gotten taken out of his hands. The other strange thing to me is how all of a sudden Robert Saleh and the front office of the Jets have been absolved of the issues here because, well, Aaron Rodgers went down, and that was your plan. Is everyone forgetting that Zach Wilson was the second overall pick that Robert Saleh and his team picked themselves 3 years ago. It's not like they had Trevor Siemian, who they just signed to the practice squad this week, like all of a sudden, he's the only guy we got and we picked him off. No, this was the guy that was going to be your franchise quarterback for years. You blew it after 2. He has to come back and play, and everyone's like, oh, well, what fault is there? Don't pick that guy, Joe Namath.
There's no way that Robert Saleh and the Jets are absolved of this. There's reporting out of New York from ESPN's Rich Cimini today saying that he is at risk of losing the locker room defensively and offensively. It's their fault. They're holding it.
If only there was a guy who for the last 6 months has been yelling into a camera and into a microphone that he was going to lose this locker room when things inevitably went south because he's not a good coach. And everyone was like, oh, he runs stairs before the game. I'm not going to say I told you so.
That's good to know. Unfinished business coming up next. You're watching the Rochester Press Box. Won't you say it? The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back to the Press Box. It's unfinished business, and of course, we have Pat Duffy start us off.
The newest highest paid player in NFL history is quarterback for the Bengals, Joe Burrow, which is a problem for the Bengals because they were 0-2, risking going 0-3 on Monday Night Football this week, and they decided, despite a calf injury that has been bothering him, admittedly, and altering the way he's playing the game, they let him go out there. You invested the most money in a player in NFL history, and you allowed him to go out and potentially make an injury worse to keep yourselves from going 0-3. Now, I understand nobody wants to start 0-3, but it is mind-boggling to me what we've seen recently with NFL teams' investments and what they're willing to risk for games or two. We talked earlier about Mike McDaniel leaving Tua Tagovailoa in the game into the fourth quarter to throw touchdown passes. That's a guy that has a history of concussions, a guy that debated leaving the game in the offseason because of what it could potentially do to his body. And you, with a 40-point lead, allowed him to throw touchdowns into the fourth quarter. And look, the Bills aren't absolved of this either. Josh Allen is making $225 million, probably more, on extensions over the life of this contract. He injured his UCL last season, an injury that's going to keep Shohei Ohtani from potentially pitching all of next season. And what do? They ran him out again the week after and let him keep playing, despite the fact that they knew that his play was being altered and he could possibly injure it worse. If you're going to invest this kind of money that can set a franchise back a full 5 years, why? Why? For the sake of 1, 2, or 3 wins, would you risk their long-term performance and, in one case, their long-term ability to be a human?
I feel it's an important quality to admit when you're wrong. As such, I'd like to offer a public apology to Bills middle linebacker Terrel Bernard. I came into this season, as did many Bills fans, concerned with how the defense would perform with former Bill Tremaine Edmunds leaving for the Chicago Bears in free agency for a 4-year, $72 million contract. It felt like a situation where the Bills couldn't just offer a competitive deal to Edmunds and they had to let him walk. After all, that is the price of success when you have a roster completely full of playmakers. Middle linebacker is the quarterback of the defense. So I felt that no matter who was going to be filling the position, it would be an area of weakness for Buffalo. This fear was amplified when the Bills' starting defense had a terrible showing against the Steelers in the preseason. And then, out of nowhere, Sean McDermott named Terrel Bernard as the starter, a guy who didn't play a snap in the preseason due to a hamstring injury. This felt like a recipe for absolute disaster. So far this season, I could not have been more wrong. Terrel Bernard has answered the bell. And in 3 games, he's logged 23 solo tackles, 2 sacks, and 2 interceptions, with those picks coming in back-to-back games. Do you know how many picks Tremaine Edmunds has in his career? 5. And he started 73 more games. I'm not trying to take anything away from Edmunds. He was the 5-year leader of a defense who averaged in the top 8 over that time span. He's going to have success throughout the rest of his career, and I'm thankful for what he did in Buffalo. However, as far as Terrel Bernard is concerned, it's time for anyone on the fence to stop looking at him as a backfill because he's proven himself to be the rightful starter.
I'm not quite sure how to really put this, but where are our backup quarterbacks? I don't understand. I mean, Duffy made a point not too long ago on the fact that you've spent so much money on a starting quarterback, I don't know, with 17 games and the possibility of preseason and or playoff games and possibly a Super Bowl, you didn't think to yourself that maybe that guy might need a week off from, I don't know, a hamstring or a calf injury or a shoulder injury. I don't know. Maybe the fact that you have backup defensive players, backup secondary players, backup running backs, you would be prepared with a backup quarterback that would be a signal caller to be able to, I don't know, run 25 to 50 plays at any given moment in an NFL game where there's violence in every single play. I'm just a little bit concerned because we pay so much for quarterbacks. You would think somebody would be ready to play at any given moment, being in the film room, working with the number ones or number twos, and be ready to go with 25 plays right off the rip at any given moment. What do we get? Basically secondary quarterbacks that shouldn't even belong in the league, for crying out loud, and are waiting to get their jobs taken away by some kid who's being drafted within the next couple of months. I just don't understand, where are the backup quarterbacks where you can rely on them? Their job is to play, and to play in a moment's notice. I don't see where they are. That is this week's Rochester's Press Box. And of course, to the Duffy brothers, look forward to you. Your podcast is amazing. Let's go Duffalo.
Yeah, you can find it on the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcast. We have a TikTok, too.
Yeah, you can find us on TikTok at lets.go.duffalo.
I did neither one. I went to Spotify, so you're going to enjoy that. We'll talk to you next week.